Happy New Year, Emma. Thanks so much for talking to us today about Stonehouse. It's truly an excellent way to kick off the year, I think. And you've talked, I've seen you tweet a couple times about what a great time you had filming. But I have to ask you specifically about the scenes that you filmed with John and Barbara and Sheila when they're in Australia, which are some truly epically awkward moments, but also kind of hilarious. But there's also a serious undercurrent running through it, especially when it comes to Barbara. Can you talk a bit about filming those scenes and how it felt to work with Matthew and Keely there, and were they at all intimidating to work with?
I mean, what a crazy situation. The script is nuts, and then working with Matthew and Keely, who are both just fantastic actors who I admire loads, and then the fact that they're married is just many layers of kind of crazy, but it was so much fun. I think they were my favorite scenes to film because the script just gives you so much. And Matthew and Keely were really fun to work with, and just because they have that shorthand already, I just could kind of slot in and react and bounce off that, which was brilliant. But yeah, I think the Australia scenes are, it's like a farce or something, and that actually happened. They were all there together in that house, which is just a crazy thing to think.
It really is. It's those scenes in particular just show you how, I mean, the whole idea of the story is pretty crazy, but those particular scenes really show you how crazy it is for the people involved. When you got a sense of what the story was, and I'm guessing that you probably had you heard about Stonehouse before and the whole thing?
No, I hadn't. My parents had. Anyone of their generation, they were like, oh yeah, Stonehouse. They remembered Sheila Buckley, but yeah, it's really kind of got lost. I think no one sort of my age would have known. I think just because there's been so many scandals since.
I was going to say it stood out in its time, but now it seems to be scandals are kind of 10 a penny. Every time you turn around, there's a different MP. No matter what country you live in, really, there's politicians and scandals constantly. But I wanted to, is there one kind of part of the story that when you're reading it, you're like, okay, this is all fantastic, but this particular part I cannot believe happened? Was there something that really stood out to you in that way that was kind of gobsmacking in a way?
I mean, to be honest, the fact that Sheila stayed with him, I think because you meet her initially and you think, oh, he's a powerful kind of up and coming politician. Great. That's a really, fun situation for her. But the fact that she continued to stick by him, she visited him in prison, they got married, like that really surprised me. And it's true to life. And yeah, that really took me aback because she made a lot of sacrifices.
Well, and we see John Stonehouse is such a kind of dichotomy of things. He seems kind of hapless and buffoonish in one way, but then also a complete opportunist in another way. He's a man who clearly loved his children, but then kind of took his wife for granted and Sheila for granted a lot. What is it in him that you think inspired that loyalty in Sheila?
I mean, from reading about the real people, I think there was genuine love there. And I think he was really kind to her and they kind of found a sort of kindred spirit in one another. And I think they would have had fun initially. I guess there's always the appeal of affairs for kind of, being covert and doing something secretive. But I think he was definitely a charismatic, interesting person, and obviously got into a bit of a pickle, but initially probably quite a catch.
I love that. He was a bit of a pickle. The entire situation is just a bit of a pickle. And it's just that time period too is so interesting, especially for women of Sheila's age, where it's kind of it was such a movement forward for women both in the workforce but at home. Where do you think Sheila kind of fit in all that, and where did you think she saw herself in that kind of time period, or did she? Do you think she kind of?
Yeah. Well, I think in the script, John kind of refers to her as being a real like kind of child of the 60s, and she's got the big hair and the high boots and everything. So she's got that real sort of energy about her, definitely fashion wise. But I think there's definitely a sort of old fashioned sort of head girlishness about her, dare I say. Like she's quite sort of prim at the same time. So she's a real mix, and I think you can see all of that, the turbulence of the time in her character.
Well, for sure. And you talk about the costumes too, and I wanted to ask you a bit about that because she gets to wear some pretty fantastic styles from the time. And how much of that do you take in? Like, are you somebody who gets really excited about costumes and how you can use that to build a character? How does that kind of work for you?
I was in heaven. The costume designer guy was just fantastic. Like he could just he talked a lot about making a character's wardrobe kind of as if you were opening their cupboard at home and trying to create a whole person through their clothes. So we had so much fun kind of thinking like, oh, would she put a scarf with this? Or maybe she'd wear this ring with this jacket. So it was so much fun and such a way to tap into a character so quickly. And I mean, I just love the fashion of that period. So every day was a catwalk for me.
It's pretty fantastic. It's the every outfit you're kind of like, oh, that's so cool. I really like that.
And a lot of them, I mean, there's one specific one, it's kind of like a white woolen poncho, and she wore something basically identical to that when she was on trial. So a lot of it
was when she's telling him to like not rock the boat, not do anything, and she's just sitting there wearing the poncho and going like, what is going on?
Courtroom poncho.
Yeah, exactly. Courtroom poncho, exactly. We all have one. And we need to bring it out at specific times. But you talked about the kind of that that's kind of what she wore at the time. And the series does a really good job, I think, of balancing kind of the fictional and the true events. How do you walk that as an actor? Does it filter into kind of playing the real person and playing a slightly kind of fictionalized version? Or do you kind of just follow what, say, John Preston wrote in the script? How do you work that balance?
I mean, the script gave us so much, like it just kind of jumped off the page and I just wanted to be part of it from the off. So there was a lot kind of tonally that I got from the script that was really helpful. And also from the off, John Baird, the director, was kind of saying like, it's heightened, it's not naturalism. So I kind of knew where we were sitting with that. And I think any other research I did into the real story was more just for my own kind of motivations and to understand why she would have stayed with him, what would have led her to be a part of that crazy plan. So yeah, it's a mix, but I think it was definitely a version of Sheila for drama, not a documentary.
Not exactly. Yeah, not the true version. Well, and you mentioned earlier about how today there is kind of every time you turn around, there is something, not necessarily of somebody faking their own death, although that has hit headlines a couple times since then, weirdly. But how do you think something like this would play out today? And how do you think Sheila would react today? Because it's a very different situation, I think, in how media and everybody would treat something like this.
Well, I mean, we talked a lot about between all of the cast and crew saying, I mean, with social media, you kind of couldn't do this anymore. So I think it was really a case of its time. And I like to think that maybe someone in Sheila's position would have had more power to distance herself from it now as a young woman in 2023. But I think, you know, there's always someone willing to do crazy things at whatever time in history you're at. So who knows?
That's true. Yeah, there's always somebody going to be rocking the boat in a way. This is a very special instance of that. But thank you so much. I really appreciated talking to you today. I really enjoyed the series, and I'm really excited for people over here to get a chance to see it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.